Today we're going to be looking at an open tag to show 10 US made fixed blade knives. Now all of these knives I know are definitely 100% US made because I made all of these. So let's start out with one of the earlier knives. This is one of the first knives that I made. The sheath is like a $5 or $6 sheath from Amazon. It's pretty much junk, but it works. So here's the knife. And we have about a 4 1/4 inch blade. This is a small knife. It's kind of reminiscent of a steak knife. It almost looks like it could be an oversized steak knife. This knife is actually pretty thin. It's made out of 1095 steel, 3/32 of an inch thick, and with that distal taper, it gets very thin by the tip. Also, it's not quite a flat grind. There's a little bit of convex in here, but it comes down nice and thin behind the edge. And I've used this knife to butcher a few chickens, and it worked beautifully. So that's knife number one. Knife number two, this is also a pretty old knife that I made, and this is, I think, the first Kydex sheath that I ever made. Not the greatest, but it does a job. It protects the knife. It protects you from the knife. Small general purpose knife, just big enough to hold in the hand, but still a nice thick handle. This is 1/8 inch thick 01 tool steel with a saber grind. Blade length on this is about 2 3/4 inches. So it's a nice, small, easy to carry knife. You can drop this in the pocket. It's one of the reasons why I made this a little bit wider. It stays upright in the pocket. Clicks in here nice. Got a little thumb tab to release it, which I should probably change the profile and slim that down a little bit. But just a good little knife. To go with that in the small knife theme, this is another knife that I made at about the same time. This is CPM 154. This is a small bushcraft knife. Scandi grind, 11 degrees per side. About 2 15/16 inch blade length, almost 3 inches. And this is the same idea. Smallest, shortest handle that you can have a comfortable grip. It comes flush with the end of my hand. Also nice and thick and fairly tall, so it's a small handle that's not that small. This is a knife that you can actually do bushcraft with. You can hold on to this and work with it for an extended period of time, and it does not get fatiguing. The angles on here allow you to come up for a pinch grip or slide all the way up to do real fine work with just the tip. Actually, I really like this knife a lot. This is a pretty good design, and it's very useful. And in a little leather belt sheath, it can be very handy. Okay, let's move on down the line. This is another knife that can be carried in the pocket. This one's a little bit bigger though. This knife was an attempt to make a knife similar to the one that Mors Kochanski drew up. So I know it's being produced by several different manufacturers. This is 1/8 inch thick A2 tool steel. These are black ebony scales. The blade length on this is 3 1/2. Scandivex grind. This is another pretty nice knife. This works great as a bushcraft knife and can be carried as an EDC knife. With the grind on there, it's pretty useful for any type of cutting. Okay, now for something a little bit larger. This is in 1/4 inch thick A2 tool steel. After I heat treated it, I left the color on it. I didn't clean the blade up or sand it all down. This has a convex grind on it, and you have a blade length of 7 inches. This is an excellent knife out in the field or on a camping trip, especially several overnighters. you need to process some wood, this will get it done. This will get just about anything done. You can use it for fine work. It's just a great all-around heavy-duty knife. And to go along with it is this one here. This is made out of 1/8 inch CPM 154, and this knife is not finished yet. You can see this one, I have blue liners in it. It needs to be sanded down. The scales need to be rounded out more. You can see it needs to be smoothed out. So this knife is in process. Saber grind with 4 5/8 inch blade. So this one is a good knife if you're going to experience any wet weather. Since this is CPM 154, this is not going to rust on you. Next in line is a knife that's just out of heat treat. You have a 5-inch blade, and this is a butcher's knife. It's made out of 1/8 inch thick, 1095, and it has a convex grind on it. I know it looks like a flat grind, and it almost is flat. It's just a very slight convex coming down, and it'll have a secondary bevel on the edge when it's done. See, the edge is still flat. There's no sharpness on here at all. It's still flat because it's out of heat treat. You can't sharpen your knife down to a nice edge and then heat treat it, because the carbon will get burned out and you'll have a bad edge. So I leave it a little bit thick and then grind it down after the fact. So this knife still needs quite a bit of work done to it. It needs scales put on it. It needs to be sanded down and cleaned up. And then the last step, I'll put an edge on it. I don't like putting an edge on something until I'm done working on it. There's no use in making it sharp while you still have to work with it. So you can see this is what a knife looks like after it's been quenched in oil. And then it's had 2 tempering processes done on it. You'll see there's some purple colors. There's going to be some straw-like colors in here. And then this is all carbon and all residue from the oil. So this will be a great butchering knife for butchering game. It has some aspects of the Nesmith design in it, which you have the hump here, which would be useful for getting up underneath the skin. But yet you have a comfortable handle, the nice palm swell in it, small guard. That's going to be a nice knife when it's finished. Okay, next is another prototype. This one I wrapped some paracord around the handle. It's just testing a concept. And the inspiration for the design of this knife came from William Collins. He made 2 different knives that are very similar in appearance to this. He makes a survival knife, and then he also makes what he calls a belt knife. The belt knife is a lighter of the 2 and is the one that I find more practical. The survival knife is really thick, it's really heavy, it's very beefy, which is going to make it not as good for everyday tasks. Where this, I made this out of 5/32 inch thick, 1095, and you can see I put a nice distal taper on there. It comes down. The blade convexes down to the secondary edge, which is 11 degrees per side. You have this curved section, which is great for carving. And then this section is great for any type of slicing, and it'll work for any type of kitchen prep, almost similar to a butcher's cleaver or anything you're slicing on the cutting board. And then you have the Tanto tip. Testing on this knife has proven it to be excellent. I love this design. It's perfect here for placing your thumb or putting your finger up here. If you want to choke up on the blade, that fits right in your hand, and you can get your finger up on there. If you were using it as a hunting knife, you were processing game. So this is just an excellent knife. I liked it so much, I got a piece of crewware, and I'm going to play around with making one of these out of crewware. I will not make this knife for anybody. I drew this up myself, but it is based off of William Collins' design. I'm not going to take somebody else's work and use that to make money. Now let's move up to some knives that have a little bit higher level of finish on them. This is a knife I call my Woodsman. This is a prototype leather sheath. And what this leather sheath does, it allows for a belt carry. You know, you could scout carry it, you could cross draw, and I specifically like it as a cross draw because if you carry a firearm on your right side, you can move this knife over to your left side as a cross draw. You also have a standard belt loop on it. This unbolts and you could take this loop off if you don't want it. Then you have a dangler, which this is on with a round carabiner, and you can take this whole assembly off. The knife I call the Woodsman. This has a 4 5/8 inch blade. It's 5/32 of an inch thick, 01 tool steel with a saber grind. This has proven to be an excellent knife over the years. I've used this thing so much, it holds a phenomenal edge. I have an excellent heat treat on 01. Lanyard comes out the rear, so it's not in your way. It's not going through a tube in the back. Nice, thick, beefy handle. I love this knife. Okay, another one. Here's my Bushcrafter. This is not a sheath that I made. I got the sheath years ago off of Knives Ship Free, and then wet formed it to this knife. This is made out of 1/8 inch thick A2 tool steel with desert ironwood scales. This is a beautiful knife. This is my idea of a bushcraft knife. 11 degrees per side, Scandi grind, broomstick handle, comfortable in any position. Thumb scallops, if you want to get up on the pinch grip. The blade's tall enough, you can grab it all the way up by the tip and do fine work. Just a great knife. It'll also accept the lanyard in the back. Then I also have my EDC fixed blade. This is based off of a Canadian belt knife. Again, I put that leather loop on here so you can carry this on a cross draw either side. That is the game changer. It allows this knife to be carried. You don't even know you have it on you, and it's readily accessible. So you have a blade shape. You have that leaf-shaped blade, which Spyderco knives are famous for. And here you have a 3.5 inch blade length. We used to have a 3.5 inch blade law here in West Virginia, and that's why I made this knife the length that it is. Today we don't have that anymore. So if I was to make it over again, you know, I think I would still keep it the same length, because this is about the largest size that is very easy to keep concealed on your person. You go any bigger than this and it sticks out, you know, it's like a sore thumb. And it also isn't comfortable, where this knife is very comfortable. It's got a very comfortable handle. It's nice and thick. I made it the minimum length to go across my hand to be comfortable in all different types of grips. You can choke up on it. You have thumb scallops, which really aid into pinch grip. Just a wonderful knife. With the contour in here, great spot to put your thumb on here. Anything that you have to do, this knife will handle. Again, you have 5/32 of an inch thick, 01 tool steel, convex grind, convex all the way down to the edge. This knife is very tough, yet it's also a great slicer. It's just a good all-around knife. I like convex grinds. I feel it's the best all-around, multi-purpose, do just about anything kind of grind. And then this is the next evolution in the design of the sheath. Here I have the loop stitched on. You have the belt loop on the back and the dangler on that round carabiner, so it's removable. This knife also has a convex grind. It's 5/32 of an inch thick, 01 tool steel, desert ironwood burl scales with black liners. Lanyard comes out the rear. you have a partially exposed tang. So in case you have to bang anything, or you can scrape with that. There's a lot of things you can do with that exposed tang. This has just been a phenomenal knife. This is a knife I really enjoy. You can see the Coke bottle shape. Very, very comfortable in hand. And with the angles here, it's very comfortable to come up on the pinch grip. The blade's tall enough to come all the way up on the end and hold it. You have the swell here at the back. So if you want to hold it to get a little chopping action, you can. Just a great all-around knife. Stainless steel tubular pins. Blade length. Got a 4 1/4 inch blade length. And then last, this is a knife that's still under construction. This has been heat treated and cleaned up. The next step on this will be to put some scales on here. I've been going back and forth about what I want to put on here for scales, and I've came up with black burlap micarta. I have a piece, and that's what's going to go on here. I have 2 1/8 inch brass pins. Then I have a 1/4 inch brass pin that has a scorpion on it, and that's what will go in here. So it'll have a decorative pin in the center, and this knife is going to be called the Scorpion because it has a lot of bite. So like I said, this has been heat treated and cleaned up, and the edge is not sharp, but it's ready for a bevel. So this was a little bit of a pain to grind to get all these facets to show up right, because this is going to be sharp on top and on the bottom. The handle in here is going to be kind of bulbous, so it'll fill up the center of your palm and is not going to be easily removed from your palm. So you have a regular grip like that. You can also come up here in a pinch grip. So this is what I would put in the class of a get off me knife. Any way you look at it, it's going to be sharp. So this will just be a neat little knife. Then I also have this knife here, which is a small neck knife, or you can put it on the belt. You could just put some paracord through here and have it as a horizontal carry, or you could, depending on how you lace it through, or you can put different belt clips on here. And the reason I call this knife the Rednecker is these are burgundy linen micarta scales. And burgundy is nothing more than just a shade of red. And since it's a neck knife, I called it the Rednecker. This has a 2 3/4 inch blade, 3/32 of an inch thick 01 tool steel, 2 1/8 inch pins, and a 1/4 inch tubular pin in the rear. This is also a great little EDC fixed blade. But with the blade size, thickness, and shape, it's really not too much different than a folder. So it's a folder that doesn't fold. It's a little bit more stout. This, I think, is the right place to be for an EDC fixed blade. It's the right size. It's the right weight. It has the right strength. It's just, I think, where you should be for an EDC fixed blade. But this definitely will make a better neck knife because it's lighter. So I think I might have a couple extra. I might have gone a little bit over 10, but there are some of my US made fixed blades. And I know they're US made because I made them all myself. We'll see you on the next one.